Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I am your host, Johnathan Cilia, joined by Julian and Bonnici today. Yesterday was another big day for Malta, so let's jump right into the headlines. ATTARD residents and workers clashed as two 70-year-old trees were removed in ATTARD. A Maltese singer has responded to allegations that his hit single was plagiarized. The Nationalist Party has called for anyone who feels like they've been overcharged in their water and electricity bills to register with them. TVM actually made a profit from the Eurovision in 2016, Destiny's manager says, and Hayley BUGEJA wins Best Young Player Award in her debut season in Serie A. Now definitely stay tuned to the end of today's episode. We've got a very special guest. Kerry Hermitage is in the house today to speak to us about homelessness in Malta. She's from the YMCA, so that's very, very interesting. Definitely stay tuned for that. And if you have not yet signed up for Love and Digest, definitely sign up for it. It is the easiest way to get the most important and latest news direct to your email. You can just sign up straight from our website, lovinmalta.com, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, on to our first story. So residents and authorities clashed in ATTARD yesterday over the uprooting of trees as part of an infrastructure road project in the area. Actually part of the Central Link project in general. The trees were removed on Notar Zarb. For those of you who don't know, that's the street where there's the speed camera and ATTARD. It's a road we all pass through all the time, you know, usually covered with these large trees. Well, they're being removed. What was interesting about it was that people like Movement Graffiti and PM candidate Rebecca Cilia came and joined residents, you know, protesting against the uprooting. On their part, the planning authority and ERA sort of said they have all the applications to do it, and removing the trees is important because it's going to be part of an exit lane as part of the road project. I even saw a headline this morning with ERA saying, you know, how they had no choice but to uproot the trees. Now, you know, I'm a bit conflicted on this, right? Because I do understand, you know, sometimes certain consequences have to be made when you're trying to, you know, create an infrastructure project or improve the roads. But I think the protests and the anger is a bit symptomatic of a wider issue in Malta, right? Where we're seeing our environment being destroyed, trees being chopped down all the time. There was actually a really interesting post by Matthew Caruana Galizia, sort of on the subject, who sort of said, you know, the government is always really willing to act and rush into something and chop down trees according to a report. But then when it comes to reports on government corruption and the overspending of hundreds of millions of euros, then the government goes quiet, you know. So I don't know what you think about it, John.
Oh no, you know, this really reminds me of a very similar situation that happened in Balzan last year. A very similar situation. You had these big, large trees, beloved by residents. Even if you're passing through the area, you know them. And obviously they had been uprooted as well. And it was a very similar scene. You know, residents had to come out themselves to fight for what they believed their locality deserved. What I found interesting was it was good to see, you know, opposition members, MPs as well, you know, hitting the scene, speaking to residents. There was Tony Bedzina and David Rajus on the scene. And what I actually liked was Tony Bedzina, who is the Shadow Minister for Transport, said, listen, I believe that the trees could have been saved with some minor changes to the plans. So it's good to see that the opposition actually stepped in and are actually saying, you know, with a bit of different thought, we could have saved these trees. But then again, it is 2021 in Malta. It is not really a surprise to see trees being uprooted left, right, and center. Moving on to the next story today, a bit of a sad one. One of the most, you know, hottest songs over the last few months to come from a Maltese singer in Maltese may have actually been plagiarized from a popular British band. So Aiden's Naħseb Fik, a song that, you know, has been on radio, airwaves, people have been playing it themselves, Spotify has been getting hundreds of thousands of streams. You know, people are noting some similarities between Aiden's song and Clean Bandit's TikTok. Now, Clean Bandit's song isn't even a big song, it's one of their B tracks. You can find it on YouTube. It's a reggaeton, you know, type of vibe, and people are saying that the similarities are too uncanny, that the song was pretty much plagiarized from Clean Bandits. Some prominent musicians took to social media to call out Aiden, including Briccuni's Mario Vella, as well as popular guitarist Wayne Camilleri. We actually spoke to Aiden. We spoke to the young Maltese singer, who obviously denied that he had plagiarized the song. He explained that the beat was made by his Macedonian producer, a producer that works with Sony, and that he wrote the lyrics and the melody for it. But you know, listening to the two songs side by side, there are some major similarities. Now look, pop music, a lot of it has very similar chord progressions. They oftentimes have very similar motifs. But you know, when is too similar, too similar?
Yeah, no, I was listening to it and there was a bit of an uncanny similarity to it. This is not the first time actually Aidan has been in similar controversy. I remember a few years back when we were still doing the Malta song for the Eurovision Song Contest. He had ended with a beat he had purchased online, which wasn't technically allowed. It was a bit confusing. What I would say is that I'm not really surprised this happened, right? It's particularly with reggaeton, it's a really similar beat, no matter what track it's played on. And really, I think shows the side of the music industry people shouldn't really be shocked by, right? There are tons of these types of producers who literally create 1 or 2, 3 beats and sell them off to all the labels across the world, and they just reproduce them for different tracks and different artists. Also, it's not that bad. Cardi B, who's probably one of the biggest performers right now, actually got famous by rapping over someone else's beat. So yeah, give Aidan a chance. I mean, the song is good, and let's get to the bottom of it, really. On to our next story. The PN is stepping in to help people who have been overcharged for their water and electricity bills, which they say could total up to 50 million euros. This comes after an NAO report flagged draft report, flagged that, you know, people have been overcharged up to 6.5 million euro over one single year, raising serious clear questions about Malta's energy policy and what exactly we're paying for. The PN told people, you know what, whether you're from the party or not, we'd really like to help, we'd really like to get that money back to you, and they're calling people to register their concerns with their party on Saturday between 9:30 and 12:30. I really want to see what's going to happen. You know, we're talking about trees earlier, you know, and the government still hasn't really commented on us paying so much more for our water and electricity, when we are always promised that we'll be paying less by now, particularly with the electro gas deal, the sale of an Malta to other parties. You know, I'd really like to see some action be taken. Good to see the opposition actually, you know, being a bit proactive maybe for once.
You know, look, water bills, electricity bills, those are kind of, you know, the topics that you hear every year. You hear it, we've been talking about it for decades. So this is definitely something that the public thinks about, is very close to the homes of many families. So it is good to see that the Nationalist Party are listening to what people are saying, both online as well as to them. And even, you know, getting a little bit of a class action, you know, initiative happening. So as Julian said, if you are interested in being part of this, Saturday, that is tomorrow, between 9 and 12:30, head over to Pieta and maybe make something happen on this. Moving on to the next story and talking about topics that, you know, never go out of fashion. Eurovision, you know, obviously this has been a week where Malta has had to grapple with coming 7th, which once again really isn't that bad of a result when you really look at things. But when your hopes are sky high, maybe 7th isn't that great. But either way, as you know, people are getting to grips with the Eurovision result, many people are now asking questions about how much money was spent in this Eurovision, was it the best use of the money, etc., etc. And now Destiny's manager, Howard Kidebano, who's very central to the Maltese music scene, has come out quite defensively, you know, and revealing that in 2016, TVM had actually made a profit from the Eurovision, which is something that many people didn't expect. It's believed that Eurovision is quite a money-losing venture. So the fact that TVM actually made money from it back in 2016 when Ira Losco went up to represent Malta is quite interesting. But it didn't end there, you know. Howard Kidebano said, listen, once this investigation's over, if it turns out that there was no misdoings and the money was used appropriately, he's demanded an apology for Destiny from the public and all the people, you know, spreading these allegations about it. This also comes as Malta's discussing, well, not Malta, some people are asking whether we should bring back the Malta Song for Europe to have our contestant chosen. So lots and lots of questions and discussions about Eurovision days after it's ended.
Yeah, no surprise really. There's always an inquest after Eurovision, you know. I mean, Maltese people get hyped up every year. We always think we're going to win it and then demand a full-scale inquiry once we lose. I mean, it's not Destiny's fault. We hyped her up so much that we all thought we were going to win, myself included. You know, but And people have to realize, when you're putting on a show like this, are people surprised so much money is spent? I mean, the staging is ridiculous. The clothes are ridiculous. She even had an outfit change from one semi-final to the final. She has backup dancers. The song is produced abroad. There's a lot of money going into it, marketing and whatever. And I also hate to bring it back to politics, though, but I can't understand how people are getting in uproar about this money spent and then can see millions going on things like the St. Vincent de Paul project, the Electrogas project, so many dodgy contracts, millions being taken out of our money, and nobody seems to bat an eye, So, I mean, that's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if you agree with me or not, but at least that's what I think about this whole situation. On to some positive news. Hailey BUGEJA, Malta's football 1 decade, is going from strength to strength and has won the Best Young Player Award in Serie A Femminile in what was her debut season. I mean, a really, really incredible result. She only moved to Sassuolo last summer from United, and she made the step up to Serie A. I mean, it was like nothing for her. She finished the season with 12 goals. She finished Sassuolo's top scorer and helped them, finish third. And let's not forget, it wasn't only her debut campaign, but BUGEJA is only 17 years old. I mean, the future is so bright for her. I mean, sometimes though, she's not the only one, right? Sometimes you sort of think, Hailey BUGEJA. There are loads of Maltese female footballers doing some really incredible stuff all across Europe. I don't know, I'm getting excited there. Maybe forget the Eurovision, we're going to win the Women's World Cup.
No, honestly, when I look at young female athletes and what they're doing, first of all, where are the guys? I think we need to start stepping it up because the girls are killing it. It's not just Hailey, Tanisha Thornton as well is absolutely owning it when it comes to weightlifting. Lovin Malta is actually doing a bit of a spotlight on Maltese youths. If you haven't yet seen it, we've done an interview, a whole documentary on Hailey BUGEJA. Definitely check it out. But as Julian said, she's just 17 years old. She scored 12 goals, and she even scored a hat-trick in an international match. So this is very, very, very impressive for any type of athlete, let alone a 17-year-old Maltese youth playing in Italy in her debut season. So hats off once again to you, Hailey. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Definitely stay tuned for a very, very special interview coming up right now. But before that, we're going to cut to a quick video, a trailer for Lovin Malta's new series, Lovin Streets, where we hit up those hidden gems, those iconic boulevards full of Maltese life, culture, and food. Episode 1 just dropped last night. Here's a trailer for it right now. Hey guys, Johnathan Cilia here. And in seasons 1 and 2 of Lovin Eats, we took you to some of the most incredible and delicious restaurants on the island, but in a whole new spin-off series. Join us as we take you to those iconic streets, those quintessentially Maltese boulevards, full of incredible Maltese life. Welcome to Lovin Streets, and in episode 1, we explore Marsa Schlock's famous Shatt Said. So we're back on Lovin Daily. Here with us today in the offices, we've got Kerry Hermitage. She's the head of the residential program for YMCA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for the invite.
So we wanted to bring you in, obviously, to talk about homelessness in Malta right now. Now, this is a topic that even as Lovin Malta, we've covered here and there, but it seems like, it's an issue that never really goes away. It never really disappears. So before we get into the details, what's the current situation? What's a general overview when it comes to homelessness in Malta right now?
So homelessness has been around for ages. We've been working in homelessness for over 25 years. It's always been there, but it's more highlighted now, and it's shocking that we're still not talking about it. Okay, so if I was to tell you, like in the last 2 years alone, we've received over 1,500 referrals of people who are in need of shelter.
Wow.
And amongst that number, there's over 400 of which are under 18. So we're talking about a problem here. It's a significant number. What makes it harder is the fact that it's not visible. In Malta, we have what we call hidden homelessness. So we need to make a distinction between rooflessness and homelessness. So somebody might have a roof over their head. They might not be sleeping on the streets as the traditional image we have of this person who's homeless. but they are still homeless. So we encounter families living in garages, 2 floors underground, families living in cars. All of the residents we have in our shelters, they now have a roof over their head, so they're no longer roofless, but they are still homeless until they move on to independent living. So yeah, it's still very much an issue.
So this affects, people of all ages, all genders. I mean, you've just mentioned there's hundreds of youths. Just this week, I saw like a few stories coming out of specific cases. I saw one case, a person had to enter prostitution when they were 12 years old. Is it commonly seen that someone who's homeless might have to enter prostitution in Malta?
No, I wouldn't say it's common. I think it's important that as well we understand that the homelessness is the result of a change in circumstances. We are seeing many, many situations which aren't rooted in any social issues. It is just a case of a change of circumstance, health, you couldn't keep up with your job, the rent rise and you could no longer afford it, loss of job in the midst of COVID, couldn't afford the rent, separation, need 2 properties.
Wow.
So these are all fairly common situations which can result in homelessness. And we shouldn't take for granted the fact that not everyone has a support system. Not everyone has people to turn to. And then yes, there are people who, because they have no one to turn to, they have to resort to these extremities, and we see some of the kindest people. I think that's one of the things which hits me the most. From the nothing they have, they want to share, they want to help their fellow residents, and I think that's special.
When it comes to youths, is there, you just mentioned a lot of different things that can lead you to homelessness, but is there maybe a common incident or something that we're seeing happening more and more nowadays when it comes to youth homelessness?
Well, our 2 main reasons that we encounter every year related to homelessness are financial issues and family issues. Those are always our top 2. So family, I would say, often goes hand in hand with youth. Okay, as on my previous point, not everyone has that support system.
Yeah.
It's important we don't judge everyone's childhood on our own for those who have had a privileged childhood. And to be able to, the majority of us would say, okay, if things got bad, I could turn to this person, I could turn to it, but not everyone has that. And when you are a youth and you don't have that, that complicates things even more, because you haven't got necessarily, maybe you want to continue your education and then you've got to go into employment. Maybe you don't have that income, maybe you don't have the savvy, maybe you're still trying to come to terms with what you've been through. So, but to go on your previous point, homelessness does not discriminate. We see every age. We've had newborn babies in our shelter to people in their 70s. It doesn't discriminate between gender, social class. We've had people with master's degrees. We've had people. It's
nearly unimaginable.
It is.
So you mentioned having a roof over your head before. What are some of the other common misconceptions people might have about homelessness in Malta?
I think the main one is that the person's done something wrong. That's a myth. That's a misconception.
Like they deserve it.
As if they've done something to land themselves in that situation, which is very far from the truth. And it actually is counterproductive, because then it pushes the person further into hiding instead of reaching out for help. We have many people in the shelter who they would never tell the people they know. 3/4 of our residents work. They're in full-time employment.
So their family and friends don't even know about their situation?
Some wouldn't even know.
Wow.
So your colleagues, you think about the people, you presume that the person next to you at the end of the day is going to go home. But they don't. Some people return to a shelter.
So is there a bit of shame involved in this as well?
And I think it's based on this feeling of, I'm being judged. When in actual fact, a lot of our work goes into empowering the person. You are a valuable person, you are still strong, you are stronger for being in this situation and to keep going.
So important.
Even youth. I remember one particular person, he was very young and he was sleeping rough. And he would meet his friends at the swings, and they were teenagers and they were hanging out there. He said at the end of the evening, my friends went home and I went to sleep on that bench and no one knew.
No, these are some incredible stories, and as you said, they're not spoken about enough. So this weekend is actually going to be a telethon, right? A marathon, actually raising awareness, raising funds for this. It's happening on Sunday, right?
Yep. Sunday. It's going to be televised on all Maltese stations between noon and midnight. It's called Solidarity and Maltese Solidarietà.
Solidarietà, very good.
And there's the word dar in the middle, home. And the point we'd like to bring across is we can't have solidarity without home. Everyone deserves that basic fundamental right to have a home, to have that security. We have entire families with us, you know, and even maybe for those watching, you know, imagine a whole family, you know, you leave with nothing. You can't carry your possessions, you can't carry your creature comforts, your pets, everything. You just become homeless. People who have become homeless because of fires, people who have become homeless because of loss of job. There's so many circumstances, and you want to keep providing for your family. So through this marathon, the proceeds of this marathon will help us to build our primary house, Bonnici, further. We want this funding to go towards that, so we can cater for more people. Because from those 1,500 I mentioned before, we couldn't help more than 300.
Jesus.
Which means we were turning away over 1,000 people, and that's hard.
And if the YMCA is turning away homeless people, who do they turn to then?
Well, we're not the only organisation who works in homelessness as well, but the reality is the problem is bigger than the services available.
There you go.
That's the reality. So we need to, and everything depends on the space. And we reach out. I mean, we have a project Y Visible where we go and we look for people who are roofless to make sure they've got the support and food, and to directing them to the right services. We don't limit ourselves to the number of beds we have, but we want to say yes to everyone. We want to give everyone that same opportunity. We've opened our second house in the midst of COVID, and we've now secured our third.
Brilliant.
But it's still not enough. It's still not enough. We really, really need to grow this so we don't turn away families. We can't keep turning away people who need this support. They need this support.
So this Sunday people can call in and they can donate?
Yep. It's going to be a 12-hour marathon, noon till midnight. It would be great if everyone can come in even for some point. There's going to be entertainment. There's going to be real life stories.
Okay. Wow.
People who, you know, even success stories, people who have lived this and come out the other side. It's good that please do share. Please, you know, let's create this awareness, because this is the biggest battle, that it actually exists. Because we don't see it, we don't think it exists, but it does.
And beyond the telethon, the marathon this weekend, how else can people help out even wider, you know, on a wider level, even help out the YMCA?
I think what's important is every help is significant. Every help. There's no such thing as, oh, because it's too small. Literally every single little bit of help someone can give is a contribution. Even those maybe who can't join us on the day, the lines are open as well, but they're already, if you go onto our Facebook page, YMCA Malta. But we do encourage people to join us on the day, join us at some point, and see the reality of what homelessness is, and whichever way you can, no matter how small, please spread the word and let's help these people, because the reality is any of us, including myself, any of us, it happens overnight and can be in this situation, and when everyone's world is shook, we really need to be able to support each other.
Guys, this is, you know, a really, really important cause, and as we've pointed out, something that is not spoken about enough and is a little bit hidden, you know. People you know, people your friends might know, might be affected by the situation, so definitely tune in on Sunday, definitely check out YMCA Malta's Facebook page to find out a little bit more. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for your time.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. From everyone, have a day full of loving.